Hello, my friend, and welcome. This is your moment. I'm Katarina Miletic, and you are listening to the podcast that will challenge you to think with your soul and believe that your only power is inside you. Hello, hello.
Hi, Katarina.
Hello, Gloria.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you.
And you look lovely, my friend.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you so much. Where can we start this conversation?
Okay.
Yeah, I thought perhaps telling us what you are most passionate about in this moment. And then we will unwind that.
I love that. It's right. In this moment, when I connect to the deepest part of me, it's always the horse work. And I think there are probably many, many reasons for that. One is humans have so many opportunities to make horses' lives better in all kinds of ways. The ways I do that are unique.
Very.
I'm very open to the universe. So
Oh, it's so lovely. And I have heard that people look after horses in many different ways and probably more so physically. But you bring this element of energy healing with horses. And I call you a horse whisperer. and I know that to be true because you do have a special bond with them. So tell us about your angle and how you communicate with them. How does that feel like from your perspective?
Oh, that I think I've never thought of that word angle, but I suppose there is one. So, and I think it's when the person who is that horse's person, when they reach out to me, I'll usually have some sort of a sense of what it is that we would want to do.
Right.
And for each animal, that can look very different. And so I think when you say that word angle, which I love it, I never thought of it that way, but that's part of it. And so I think because animals, they're not as limited as we are in some ways. And, because probably conditioning, but they're just not as limited as we are in some ways.
They're more intuitive, aren't they? Because that is what all they have. I think our mind stops us in many ways rather than helping us, right?
I would agree. Yes. So that, yeah, I feel like each animal, they may want to only connect in a certain way. And so I feel like they initiate that, and I'm receptive to that or responsive to how they might want to initiate. And so
beautiful. So do they always open up to you, as it were? Do they let you in?
It's interesting because some animals, sometimes if I'm working with groups, it may be a position so that animal's person is, responsible there. And so I'm there more sometimes to offer suggestions about how they may be able to work with their horse in a way that works for their horse that might not occur to them.
In many ways, it's the relationship between the two, and it's lovely how you guide them towards each other. So you were sort of taking that position of you are not in front with the animal, but the owner of that animal. I like how you call them, they're human.
Yes, they're human. Yes.
Tell me, how does your work translate into online world? Do you work with some remotely like that?
I do, yes. And I work across the species. So I've worked with cats and orphaned calves and many horses, of course, and pot-bellied pigs. And very sweet. And yeah, and other species I'm sure I'm forgetting to mention. But I think that's the part where sometimes, just depending on when the person reaches out, I'll have a sense. And I feel like that is sometimes, I believe that has been the animals' clarity in who they are and what they want and need and prefer. And then, of course, it's up to the owner and oftentimes their vet as well. I have lots of friends that are vets over the years. And
I wanted to ask you if you could perhaps share some of those stories, the stories that when maybe the biggest transformations or something that really moved you, that you think it's inspiring to hear.
There's a particular horse that he lived in the Southwest desert, and his person, when she got him, he had a lot of previous injuries, and she'd done a lot of things. She'd reached out to a lot of different modalities to work with her horse to try, to help him. But for whatever reason, it just wasn't doing the trick, if you know what I mean. So it was all kinds of things. She'd exhausted all avenues. And I happened to be in the West at that time, and someone that knew her and knew me literally said, "You have to come." So he made that introduction and was there as part on behalf of the horse. So we began to offer suggestions for the horse. And I feel like, when we are able to create a container like that, everyone who's present there plays in, including the other herd mates and everyone there. And so this horse in particular, his headstall, which is a horse for their bridle, the headstall part, a steer's horn had gotten hung in the headstall and had flipped the horse end over end. That's what had created that original injury for this horse.
Right.
But his owner, I know she said she had, it'd been 12 years since that. She got him right after that original injury. So he had a lot of limitation in his mobility and when he walked. So I would describe it, he moved more like what you would call a stick horse. And fortunately she did not try to ride him or anything like that because of his injuries, which is why she got him. She wanted him to have the opportunity to heal and rehabilitate rather than have to continue on as a, in his job.
Yes.
So she'd been bringing out, chiropractors, all kinds of everything she knew to do. But I feel like what we did was we helped him explore possibilities in a way that was really easy for him and pleasant. And it was very subtle. And also just with the other people that were with me that day, I would think about, well, how can we help him remember what the direction of that movement feels like without any invasion or being intrusive at all. So sometimes it was a lot of a team effort, just for the fact that I would ask one person to say, well, can you ask him? And then simultaneously ask for something very complimentary. So, and he did really beautiful with that and just started to find his own way and would really just start to move in a way that was just beautiful. And his body, I always, when I first started my studies, I'm a yoga therapist as well. So I would think about our spine like a string of pearls and how they can just move so easily, the string of pearls. And so we started to see him very much when in his movements explore these subtle tilts of his head and his neck and throughout his whole body. And he just, beautifully found his way. And so that's, one story that was just wonderful to see for him. His person was beyond so happy. And years later,
so he felt the improvement and went with that and followed that direction. How beautiful is that?
Yes, it is beautiful. And I think about, from a perspective, yoga therapy is meant to be a healing. Yoga was meant to be a healing art. And somatic education is certainly a healing art. For this horse, he found where he needed extra space, he was able to organize that. And where he needed more stability, he was also able to simultaneously organize that. And so it was just really beautiful to be there and to trust also sometimes when people bring me somewhere, I really don't have any idea, what.
What to expect.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess it takes also a lot of intuition, both on your part and on part of the animal, to guide you where your help is most needed.
Yes, very much so.
And then going on to our human family, and sometimes we have words to communicate with. We have so many more means of communication, yet sometimes we miscommunicate.
Absolutely.
Right? How early did you discover this gift and this affinity and ability to help animals? And how does that tie in with working with humans as well?
I'm not sure how early I discovered it. I think it must have been, I mean, honestly, it was very early on, but it wasn't a conscious thing. I just thought that was normal. I had certain tendencies of how I would do things, and that's just how I did things. So I didn't know any different than that. And then just through studies, one thing was leading to the other. And I really like what Carolyn Mace said regarding intuition, or what some people would consider gifts or abilities. She said she sees intuition as a skill, and she says everyone has that, or that ability. Everyone has that ability, and then some people can develop that more and more. And it just, she said, it's like playing the piano. So some people come here being very adept at the piano with no formal lessons, and then others can learn to play and become very adept, and all things in between. And I think that that is a beautiful description of the practice. So I know for me, a lot of students over the years would really want me to be able to teach them a lifetime of things in 3 days, or and I do my best to do that, you know. I think I've always loved all things energy-based, energy systems. And whether that's in the frame of neuroscience, the way, for example, in the tradition of Thomas Hanna, it's neuroscience based. In the field of yoga therapy, you know, oftentimes with certain horses, I use mantra, and they absolutely love it. And so I'll give their person the mantra, and then they'll work with it and report back. And
it's also creative. I love that. It's so malleable. Love flexibility in work. And it's nice to have structure, but within that structure, there ought to be a great deal of spontaneity and flexibility.
Yes.
And in that space, then our intuition, we can get more in tune with it, as you were saying. That's exactly how I see it as well. Things can always be improved upon, right? So absolutely. Yeah, maybe we have a gift, and sometimes you're not exercising enough that gift, or not paying attention to it.
It's very true. So we can learn tools or techniques or principles, but then when we're working with that particular animal or that particular person, also that knowing part, just like you said, that part that, you know, and I've had many people encourage me to continue to develop that part. I think I had this sense in me very early on to not allow things to be trained out of me, even though I didn't have the words at such a young age. I just knew. Yeah.
So important. There is a similarity in our journey as well. And I'm so grateful that my parents didn't alter some things, the creative gifts that they saw inside me. And even though it must have been a little scary because it was unconventional, they never altered it. You see, they sort of formed this protective thing. And as you said, I mean, I grew up thinking everyone else does these things the same way, but they recognized something that they thought it was special, and they ought to preserve it, not alter it, for which I'm really grateful.
Absolutely. You know, I was thinking just this morning, the world needs more poets and artists and dreamers, and that is the beauty, you know, honestly, yogic wisdom for horse and human is multifaceted. And I've always brought in a lot of color and art and visualization in these retreats and workshops. And I have a wide circle of artist friends. And I think there must be something in that is happening, but it's more in the meta, but we don't recognize it or something.
Yes. I love working with people who don't necessarily call themselves creative, because they have not had the luck to have the upbringing that we had, to have preserved these gifts, because I very much believe that we all have this capability inside. Yes. We are all creative, and we need creative traits to help us get out of situations, figure out things, find answers. All of that is deeply rooted in our creativity. And if we just accept this label, I'm not creative, we limit ourselves and we limit our possibilities so much when we do that. So it is, I love encouraging people and challenging them and pushing them a little bit into the unknown and uncomfortable sometimes, to express themselves in a different way.
I know, because honestly, there's some beautiful quotes around that have been handed down through time about the fact that the creativity that flows through us is never going to be here again. And, if we stop it or judge it, the world won't have it. And, I enjoy a colorful, interesting world. And I'm so blessed enough to have clients with their horses that want their horses to have beautiful, colorful worlds too. And so we're getting to do these really amazing things, in these programs. And, and it's just, I couldn't have seen it. I mean, I think I know for sure I had a vision for it when I was very, very young. But we don't always know all the details of it. Yes. And that part is the fun part. And yeah, I'm with you on that everybody has a natural ability to create and innovate. And especially like with you having parents that didn't shut it down. And also I know that they've done studies with children, and they know that when babies are born, almost all of them are at a genius level. And then by the time they're 2, it's a smaller percentage. By the time they're 5, it's less. And by the time they're 20 years old, it's only 2% of the population at 20 have retained their genius level. But at the beginning, it was almost all babies were genius. And they said they think what happens is, from what they've seen, from what they've observed in the studies, that they lose their genius abilities when they start to look outside of themselves. They look to another to see if they were getting it right. That looking to say, did I get it right? And then it goes down.
Absolutely. And then it takes some years to undo that, to unlearn that, and to remember what you once knew, what you came into this world with. And fascinating again how this really overlaps. And I love that, Gloria. I love that when I discover close friendships, and there is always a deeper meaning behind why our paths have crossed. It's amazing. And you bring human animals and their pets, their loved horses and dogs and cats, in alignment with each other. And my work is helping people realign with themselves and look inwards for that guidance. As you said, it's so beautiful. It's lovely when we find resonance in another. But if we are looking for that approval and for that feedback to come from outside, and we are sometimes overriding our own feelings and instincts, and think our instinct isn't reliable enough, right? Somebody else is better qualified to know something about our own life and happiness. That's when we run into trouble. That's when we fall out of alignment really with ourselves, with our own nature, because we're so unique, right?
I know I heard someone say, she was speaking with business owners, and she said, "You're not a unique snowflake." And I understood what she meant in that moment. She wasn't saying it directly to me. She was just saying it to her group. And I see that very differently. I see that we are unique snowflakes. We are. And Yeah,
So
one isn't better than another.
No, we're expressing in different ways. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
The appearance of each snowflake is different and it is unique, isn't it? But the essence of every snowflake is the same. Right?
That's
And
beautiful.
it is true for us as well.
Yes, it is.
This is the beauty of it, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah. And I think it is another, Katerina, when you said there's always something deeper, some deeper thread that's not as obvious in a connection when you have a deeper friendship or connection with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree completely. And what you said about helping people find their truth and find who they really are,
Mm-hmm.
I have a massive heart for that as well. And it is honestly a passion of mine. And because I know it's very important, and you won't always get a lot of encouragement from the world to be a truly unique snowflake. You won't have and we're meant to be unique snowflakes, because we're meant to come together. You can say I've got my hands like this, to interlock your fingers. We're meant to come together like that. And if we are trying to fit ourselves into someone else's frame, our unique, the way we all are meant to come together, it's going to be disjointed.
Yes.
And
yes.
So
inside this mind, body, soul complex that we feel that misalignment. We feel that we're not being true to ourselves, right? So.
Absolutely. Yes. And I find that, within myself, because I am human, I find people I really admire and I aspire to be like them because they bring so much beauty and nobility to the world. And then I also, other parts of me, I mean, I'm very much aligned with that. And I'm also quirky.
Yes.
And I'm, all these other things. So I find, how do we show up in our true, unique,
Absolutely. Oh, I think your quirky is the most beautiful quirky I have ever seen. Speaking of that, in the description, you will be able to find Gloria's website where you can get directly in touch with her if her work moves you. And I will also put the links to her main social media channels that you can follow her and watch for her beautiful videos of inspiration, and where she shares really essence of who she is. And I love that about you, because you are so genuine in everything that you share, that comes across so effortlessly, and it just makes you feel you're friends before you even meet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katerina.
It happened like that, right?
Yes, it did. I know. I think that's just a wonderful thing when that happens, and it's part of the beauty, I think, of life and being on the planet together. And when you said, are there some stories you can share? If we have a minute, if I can share one more.
For sure. Yes.
The first retreat I ever held for women and horses, one of the women that came was from Denmark. And she said to me when we met in person, she said, do you know what your last name means in our language? And I thought about when you said so connecting, if anyone wants to connect, they can go to my website. Yes. And it's gloriahester.com. But so she knew my last name was Hester. And she said, I knew when I saw your name and what you do, she said, I had to come. And she said, do you know what your last name means in our language? And I said, no, I have no idea. What is it? And she said, well, it's our word for horses. So Hester, yeah. So she, I think when the universe winks, it just has fun. The universe is extremely creative as well. And so she was so fun to have her there and to meet her horse and to work with him. And it was just really magical. And also, as far as being aligned, we're in a world where, we are connecting this way. And we're spirit, and we're in a physical body, and we're built for connection. Humans are built for connection, just like horses are herd animals and dogs are pack animals, and humans, we're herd animals. And so I think that as I was learning how it is, how do we all connect? And so people were wanting to help me with that. And they were asking me, who is my favorite client to work with? And honestly, my truth was, well, my ideal client is a bay horse, because it's the truth. I just was like, I love a bay horse. I love all horses. It's, it's not, but it was just in that moment, that's all I could get. That was really all I could get was a bay. And that was fine for me, but it wasn't fine for them, because they said, Gloria, horses are not aligned. They're not aligned. And so as much as I would try, I could not get anything else to come out of my mouth, out of my heart. And so then this woman in this room sees me and she says, oh my God, she says, you're the horsewoman. We've been looking for you. And she's like, don't move. And so she said, my roommate needs you. My roommate's horse needs you. Okay. So she's like, don't move. We've been trying to find you. So I'm like, okay. So she goes running across this room. She comes running back with her friend. I mean, they are like little girls. They are jumping up and down. They're giggling. They're so happy. And I didn't really know, so she stands in front of me and she takes my hands, like we're literally holding hands. And she says, oh, I've been trying to find you. And she said, my horse needs you. And I said, what is your horse's name? And she says, Bay. His name is Bay. And the people around me were like, I give up. They just knew they were like. So
fantastic. I hope that was the day you stopped taking advice from other people.
Actually, no, it was. And it's not that I still don't have people who do, yeah. God love them. They do their best to give me advice. And then they're like, I can't do anything with you. Like, so frustrated with you, but they don't understand. And that's okay. I understand that they don't understand.
Yes.
And
yes. Excellent. That makes so much sense. Absolutely. There is no box in which you can fit. That mold was definitely broken when you emerged.
Yes, it was.
So long you were aware of that, because it was really painful for some time in my life. I had the period where I was trying so desperately to find where I fit. It did not work until I realized that life is taking me on the path where I needed to be. And then when I was brave enough to embrace that, then the door started opening. like the horse called Bay. I mean, how amazing is that?
I know. I just had to laugh because, I was honestly so full of gratitude in that moment too, because I felt like it was just, because I was, as hard as I was working to help come to some place that felt good for these other people, for me to come up with words. There were no other words other than that in that moment. That was just my truth. And, and I feel like what you said would really bear repeating, that when you opened up to that, when you aligned to that, then that's when things started to open up and change for you. And I know that when we talked about the quirky part as well, and the not fitting in a box, and, I felt like there's even stronger encouragement now to try to fit into a box and to try to fit a certain mold. And I think there are valid reasons for that the reasons are very left brain reasons, meaning they're very data driven, they're very logical, but they're not right for everyone. And so I could imagine it must be very trying for those people who live in that data driven or logical driven part. But, even not trying to fit into a box or anything like that, we all share certain things in common. Like, say, for example, you being an artist, me being a horsewoman who also loves food and has a passion for food and also does body ecology. And, I do all these great recipes that I would use in retreats and teacher trainings and gatherings. And it turned into a collection. And then it meant that I needed a graphic designer. And, so it's different projects that are authentic to who I am, that literally make up, people don't realize, like, when we eat food, it makes up our physicality and how important that is. And So I have a lot of things that I care about, and I see the benefits of for myself and for others, and how even, depending on your state of being, when you go to be with your loved ones, which includes your animals,
Yes.
when you go to be with them, it can change everything. So everything.
Yes, indeed. I love how you went where I was going to go with the next question, and that was about other projects and current projects, and what are you working on? What is in the like in the pipelines? What do you want to bring into the world more?
Oh, wow. Well, definitely, I would say to keep in touch, go get on my website list for sure, because one of the things that I'm working on is called Elevate, and it's a private membership where people can come in and really have, be privy to tools and techniques that I work with, and be privy to these things, like balancing, working with your nervous system with food, and practices, and from the field of yoga as therapy, whether that's sound, mantras and mudras and practices. But I want to add this: there's no need to hurt yourself with a practice. And I know some people believe that they have to, if they're going to practice, that it has to be very strenuous, and that's not the case at all. It's one of the ways you can practice, but it's not the only way. And so that I would say that's one of the things that's a really near and dear to my heart right now inside of Elevate, providing members with the correct feng shui for their homes in 2022. I practice a form of yogic feng shui. And so we're working with directions and colors and things like that in how to help support you, basically mind, body, and soul. It's really supporting you in your relationships, supporting you in your health and your finances and your well-being and what you are bringing to the world. So what you want to be known for as well. Within feng shui, you can actually work with certain directions and things and colors and visuals and things like that. I call it like living in prayer, or it's a visual prayer. There's this very sweet book called Praying in Color that's more about drawing, and you might enjoy that. It's just really, I've used that sometimes in retreats because it's kind of an alternative to vision board, if you will. But so I mean, if I start to talk about these things, it's like I put kawaii on a vision board one time, and honestly, I was like, I didn't even think anything about the fact that it was kawaii. And then it's probably like 3 weeks later, I'm working with horses in Kauai. And when I got back from Kauai, I was like, oh, I saw that. And I was like, yeah, that's okay. Okay.
That's it. And there it is. That is that intuition and that spontaneity that I was mentioning before. When we start efforting it from here, it's going to be much harder to envision something or to bring something to manifest in our life. But when you just approach it from the playful nature that you do have, when you embrace that, things unfold beautifully in life. And I'm so happy to hear of your many projects, and I know that each and every one will bring something beautiful to people that you will be working with and connecting, and also it will enrich you. And I am so grateful just having this benefit from being your friend, to see you from close proximity.
Thank you, Katarina. I have to say, it's a lot of fun. And that, in the words of Cyndi Lauper, girls just want to have fun. So.
Yes. Absolutely. We can't overlook fun and personal satisfaction. Very much we have to define that for ourselves and then fill in the rest of the picture. But if we are waiting for something else from outside, all of these other conditions that we are living in to please us, so that the joy can be like in response to that, we might be waiting a long time.
Well said. Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, what are some of your like private practices to keep yourself in this state? Is it effortless, or does it take certain discipline to keep to those rituals? And if you want to share a bit about that.
Well, I love that question. In my experience, so in my experience, when I first started to study and practice yoga, I was full in, so oftentimes 6 hours a day, because I was teaching. So my private, the practice I was doing for me would be so many hours a day, and then teaching so many hours a day. So oftentimes just my personal practice and experience of yoga would be 6 hours, and then maybe 2 or 3 hours of teaching and so forth. And so for years, it would be this sort of diving in, and then finding these other things that just really enrich that, and studying so many different mindful movement modalities over the years. And I always went into those with a very clear intention that I was studying those because I wanted to feel and experience within my own system and bring that back into what I understood to be yoga. So I was always working with that perspective. No matter what the modality was called, I was always bringing it back in. And so over time, I would say really that is what what I have put inside of Elevate as a program. There are 4 primary practices that I recognize that you can work with, but it doesn't take you 8 hours a day. You don't have to do it 8 hours a day. It's just 4 very simple primary practices that I felt like I wanted to bring to the forefront, to bring forward first and foremost, to support people where they are right now, that they can do quickly and easily, that will help them align not only with what their mission is, but their peace and their inner knowing and their guidance and their strength. And so I put those inside of Elevate as a program, and I continue to add to that. So just at the beginning of this year, I went ahead and moved toward to add and integrate more. So and I'm not a super techie person, so I don't have a place where it's like, oh, you go here for this. Just go to gloriahester.com, put your name in the little bar, and you'll get information as it becomes available about when the doors to Elevate open again. There's a current group right now, and it's opening again very soon. And I'm very heart connected, so I like to make sure that people have what they need inside of there. So I have this tendency to touch base to see what is landing, what isn't, and how can we make that make more sense for you, or things. I'll give you, an example. One of them that I saw, that right now we're in a time where if people can understand what their real zone of genius is, what it really is, and if they may need some encouragement, believing in themselves and connecting some dots. So one of the modules is all around being able to connect the dots there for themselves. It does take, I
love that. Yes.
Yes.
How long is the journey that you take with them? So how long is that program for?
It's for 4 weeks, that first segment of the first 4 primary things. And I set it up so that it's self-paced, so that they really can do that. When some people, they might feel like they want to move faster, and then others may feel like they need to digest pieces of it. So within it, I've set it up in a way that they understand they can always go back if there's a certain area that that they realize they're not as strong in. And if they want to move forward, they can.
Beautiful. Very, very nice. And with that, I want to ask, what is the first thought that comes into Gloria's mind when she wakes up in the morning? How do you start your day?
I think for me, it's like, I'm awake, and then it's like, thank you. I like to be awake. And then I like to also, I love sheets, like how they feel. And so I'm one of those people, I'm like, I'm awake, and then I'm like, thank you. And then I like to feel how I feel against the sheets and things like that, just in my body. And then, and I love jasmine green tea. So then I'm absolutely straight up to jasmine green tea. And, so I'm very big in that. And, So, and I used to have certain structured practices that I would do. Over the years, those have morphed and changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, all of these practices that we can explore, we'll find some that will serve us in certain times in our lives. Yes. And quite frankly, they're not. So we're not here for the practices. The practices are here for us. So one of my morning practices lately that I'm really enjoying is just taking in imagery of what inspires me, visual imagery of what inspires me, also with sounds that inspire me and encourage me to stay closely connected to my vision. And so I realized just the power of that this morning, that I want to make that more of a ritual practice, and be more consistent in that for now, because I could feel the difference.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Certainly the viewers can draw inspiration from that as well. And I love the point that you make, that these practices are there to serve us. And we need to always stay in tune with what is serving us and keep doing that. And if something, I feel that as well, that something served me for a period of time, and then it either morphed into something else. So I just moved away from it because it fulfilled that purpose that it needed for that time. And then I became more creative with my practice. Yes. But would you agree that this time that we take in the morning to center ourselves for the day ahead, to notice that we are still alive, as you said, and that is my first thought, is like, yes, I get to see another sunrise. So I'm truly grateful for that. And I always grin. I grin like like a crazy person. So if the heavens are watching and laughing, probably say, look at her grinning.
Being awake and alive and smiling, and what that, So
yes, that took me again on a journey. Like every time I remember that, even during the day, I get that same feeling.
What you just shared, Katerina, for those who are listening, if they can't see us, I know some will be able to see us, and maybe some are, won't, but if one of the practices, if you think about for joy, one of the things that you can do that's so easy, is it's a part of our body we don't often bring our awareness to. We don't think about it, but it's the front of our armpits, like where, if you think about that crease where your arm meets your body. And so if you think about, we just call that the front of your armpit. If you can remember the front of your armpit, bring it upward, like toward the ceiling, like upward toward the sky. And we say armpits upward. So, and it's the front, specifically front of your armpits upward. So when you're doing that dynamically in that way, intentionally, you're feeling that from within and moving the front of your armpits upward. It can bring about a sense of joy and ease that our bodies are always feeding back to our brain. So, and you don't have to have special clothes on to do it. You don't, your chances are really good. If you're doing it mindfully, it's going to be comfortable. You're just going to bring the front of your armpits upward toward this when you're sitting upright, right? And so what that'll do is it'll create this, it's easier to feel joy when you do that. It's easier to feel a sense of joy. It would make it more likely when you wake up in the morning that you can say thank you, and you can say, I'm awake, and what do I need to do today, and what can I do today, and what mischief can we create today, and
I often ask people, when is the last time someone asked you out to play? Right? Because I will be that friend. I will ask you to come out and play, because I truly believe that when we stay in our playfulness, when we reconnect with our innocence, when we open to explore, and as you know, child doesn't mind making mistakes. Like mistakes, what is that? We don't judge ourselves as children. We didn't judge something that we created. We were so happy to share it with everyone who wanted to have a look, right?
Yes.
Right. So playfulness is huge part. It's a huge part of my work. I keep reminding people daily to stay close to their inner child, to how they are really feeling on the inside. Let's bring some joy, because joy comes from playfulness, from that innocent place.
Yes, as you said that, I thought about how, as a small child, when they make something or create something, they say, "Look at what I made."
Yes,
they're so proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what I made. Look at what came through me. Look at what I created. And at some point, we learn to, we're not even supposed to do that. We're taught, oh, you're not supposed to say, "Look at what I made." That's considered, I guess, a lack of being, modesty or whatever. But wouldn't it be fun if we could say, "Look at what I made"? And I'm going to have a T-shirt that says "Armpits Up."
Armpits up, yes.
You could have a T-shirt that says, "Come out, can you come out to play?" Because imagine, like you said, when is someone ask you that lately, "Can you come out to play?" or "Do you want to come out and play?" And
yes.
Yeah.
And it does not exclude or negate that life will be challenging, that challenging things will happen on our path. But when we have this sort of outlook, we are going to move through them, and we are going to view them in a different way. We're going to be able to step into the bigger picture and see that this experience is a lesson. It's an invitation for me to grow into a bigger me. It isn't disaster. It isn't the end of the world. It isn't the end of me. It isn't something bad that is happening. It is just life happening. And what can I do to be, to create a useful experience from this challenge? Right? So it's having that attitude of playfulness and joyfulness isn't negating all experiences of life, but it shines a different light on them. Right? Would you agree with that?
Because absolutely. Yes.
These conversations around positivity, I think we need to unwrap them a little bit and see exactly what we mean when we say positivity.
Absolutely. Yes, I would agree. Sometimes, you need a hug. Absolutely. And there's a time when you're like, okay, I know about armpits up, but for right now, I'm going to humor myself for 17 seconds or 17 minutes or 17 days. I'm going to humor myself and just do the opposite, right? And then at some point, but just remember, you do know about armpits up now, front of your armpits up. You do know that. So it's always an option if you choose it. And I totally agree what you're saying, not to negate or to do, some people call it a spiritual bypass, not to do a spiritual bypass when and if you have had what's called the dark night of the soul, when things just, a Judas level of betrayal or, all the things. There is so much beauty in understanding, there's a saying, and you have to be willing to be at a certain level to feel it in your heart. It might not make sense to your head, but your heart might hear it. So there's a saying, once my house burned down, I could see the moon more clearly. Wow. And you talk about a place when you get that.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that puts some perspective on it, doesn't it?
Yes. And I would never want to, push this idea of, that you had to be happy that your house burned down. Because if you're not in that place, you're just not there. And it's just going to hurt if someone says that to you, if you're not in a place where you're doing the work, where you're like, oh my God, you're right. The moon is fascinatingly in this moment, this giant, beautiful reflection of the sun that I can see in this midnight sky. And yes, it's there and we're alive and this is real. And that is so beautiful. But you could never go there if you just, it is, I would say that is what they call this, or, I don't know who used the term, but it's like that broken open state. You may never be more luminous than when you're in the broken open state.
Yeah.
And
I think it could have been Pima.
I think, yeah, Pima
Yes.
Chodron.
Yes.
I think so. Yes.
It's
So,
beautiful. It is beautiful. That's it. Remaining vulnerable and aware of these things, but also knowing that you always have this option. And yes, I mean, it helps us move through life, understanding that everything is coming in seasons, right?
yes.
And we stop and perhaps notice and talk about big seasons, but there are also these micro seasons present, and they are changing. Right? Life isn't meant to be just one season. And you know how they quote, I think it's William B. Yeats, what he wrote in his poem that these too shall pass. I think it was him who wrote. And that is true of bad times, of times of challenge, but it is also true of the happy times and times of celebrations. So just understanding that life is happening in these cycles, in these seasons, that it probably bringing that into awareness can help you be present for more of your life, right? And to understand it and not take it too much to heart and think that life is here to hurt you in some way, but to inspire you to grow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. In those hard moments, it's, that, I love that question. I mean, these are the real conversations about life. I mean, this is life experience, like you're saying. It's just, it is life happening. And I know one of a friend of mine, she said that, in the Buddhist philosophy, she said the Buddha says the Buddhists understand life is suffering. And some might hear that and think, oh my God, what a depressive statement. Life is suffering. Okay, well, why would you say thank you in the morning, or why would you even want to have a morning if life, so. But in the midst of that is knowing that it's okay. And I think this is very important. It's connected to the people that you surround yourself with too. Is if you have people in your life who understand that, and who can feel that, and they understand it, they're not going to encourage you to do a spiritual bypass. They're not going to encourage you to pretend that you're happy if you aren't. That's not what this is.
I think that is the key, Gloria. You nailed it there. If you feel that you are pretending, whether it's sad or joyful, whatever the state is, if you know inside that you're actually pretending, you're just putting on this something that you are not feeling, that isn't reflective of your inner state, then that is what we are not advising or advocating here. Right? Quite the opposite, right?
That's right.
Yes, go with it rather than against.
Yes, exactly. So, in the midst of tears, don't be afraid to laugh.
Yes.
And in the midst of laughter, don't be afraid to cry, right?
Absolutely.
Because that is what life is. And if we put a judgment on one or the other, it's like, oh, this is inappropriate, that's inappropriate. I think that's where we get stuck. And I think that's one reason people admire animals in their freedom so much, and they admire children in their freedom so much, in their ability to play. I think that's why people love their dogs and their cats so much, and their children, because they have not yet been conditioned, to the degree that adults have, to shut down. If they're crying, if you're crying, don't be afraid to laugh in the midst of, because that's real.
Yes.
And then, yeah.
Amen.
I mean, and so it is.
And so it is. I love that. I think there is no possibility of us exhausting the conversation ever, Gloria. But I think that brings us really nicely, that what you just said there, and we can underline it and highlight it again and again. Don't be afraid to laugh when you are crying, and to burst out crying when you are laughing. If that is real for you, be real and you will find the joy.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Can't thank you enough for being a guest.
Thank you, Katerina. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be part of your community and vice versa. And I hope we all will stay in touch. So
definitely, we'll have you back soon if you will come back.
I would love that. Thank you.